Every hour you waste is a silent conversation with your future self, and your future self is keeping score. Are you winning, or are you handing away your time for free? Today, I want to show you how the rich master their hours and why your future depends on it. The poor chase money. The average chase comfort. The rich, they chase time mastery. Because once you control your hours, you control your actions, your decisions, and ultimately, your destiny. Stick with me, because what I'm about to reveal could transform every single day of your life. You see, most people wake up every morning, rush through their day, and at night wonder where the hours went. They look at the clock and think about all the things they didn't get done. And yet, they fail to recognize that every hour they have is like $1 in the bank, a precious asset that compounds if invested wisely, or disappears forever if spent carelessly. I remember when I was young, sitting at my kitchen table with nothing but a small paycheck and a head full of dreams. I had no idea how wealth worked, but I did know that time was slipping through my fingers faster than my bank account. I began to see that if I could learn to value my hours, just like I would a $100 bill, my life could begin to change. I started by tracking my time, noting where I spent it, and more importantly, where I wasted it. I noticed how many hours were spent idly, watching others succeed on television or scrolling through distractions. I realized that time, once gone, doesn't come back, but the effort I put into learning, growing, and investing it would pay dividends far beyond the immediate moment. So I made a decision to treat my hours like I would treat an investment. When I sat down with a book on personal development, I wasn't just reading words, I was depositing knowledge into my life bank. When I spent an hour learning a skill that could improve my earning potential, I was planting seeds that would later grow into opportunities I couldn't have imagined. Every hour I saved, every hour I invested in myself multiplied over time. There were moments when friends would invite me to join them for entertainment, and I would have to choose immediate pleasure or long-term gain, and I chose to invest my hours. I chose to learn, to plan, to focus on tasks that would build a foundation for wealth. Years later, I saw the results. Opportunities appeared not because luck had favored me, but because I had invested my hours wisely while others had spent theirs unconsciously. And here's the lesson. Wealth isn't about luck. It's about choices, about where you place your attention, energy, and time. Every hour you dedicate to learning, to creating, to planning compounds. It is the consistent accumulation of hours spent wisely that separates those who struggle from those who thrive. Imagine if every week, every month, you took even a small portion of your hours and invested them intentionally. The compounding effect is extraordinary. You'll begin to notice doors opening, skills improving, and opportunities emerging. Time becomes your partner, your ally, not your enemy. And that is the first step to mastering your financial future. Treat each hour as a worker. Give it a job, a purpose, and it will serve you loyally. Remember, the way you spend your hours today will determine the quality of your tomorrow. Invest them wisely, and your future will thank you. Most people are trapped in a simple but powerful illusion. They think working harder and longer hours guarantees freedom, security, and success. They trade time for money, believing that the paycheck they earn at the end of the week is the ultimate measure of their effort. I once thought the same way. I worked long hours, punched the clock, and measured my life in dollars earned per hour. Yet, despite the effort, I never felt wealthy, never felt free. Then I discovered a truth that changed everything. The poor trade time for money, but the rich trade time for growth. That doesn't just mean learning a few new skills or reading a book here and there. It means intentionally designing your time to create something that works for you, even when you're not present. The distinction is subtle, but it's profound. Most people survive paycheck to paycheck. They maintain a rhythm of dependency, always working for someone else, always at the mercy of their schedule. But those who understand the power of trading time for growth, build systems, acquire skills, and create assets that continue to serve them long after the work is done. I remember when I first started exploring this. I realized that the hours I spent learning, experimenting, and creating could be multiplied far beyond the immediate results. For instance, 1 hour spent learning how to invest, write, or speak could produce income for years to come. That was a revelation. It meant I could transform my relationship with time itself. So I made it a habit every day. I dedicated at least 1 hour, sometimes 2, to something that would eventually pay me back in ways my hourly wage never could. I learned a new skill, developed a side project, wrote down ideas, or mapped out a plan to create a small asset that would eventually produce returns without my direct involvement. And here's what I noticed. The more consistent I was, the more my freedom grew. The 97% might argue they don't have time, but it's not about finding extra hours, it's about choosing how to spend the hours you already have. Ask yourself every single day, is what I'm doing right now building my freedom or maintaining my dependency? That question alone changes the way you approach work, conversation, even leisure. It forces you to prioritize what will serve you in the long run. Another key is automation. If you find yourself repeating a task that produces value, find a way to systematize it. Create a process, delegate or automate it. Let it run without constant oversight. By doing this, you're not just creating immediate value, you're creating time to reinvest in growth, multiplying your impact. Wage earners survive. They show up, do their job, collect their pay, and hope for more. Value creators thrive. They trade time not for temporary reward, but for lasting gain. They understand that freedom comes not from more hours in the office, but from better use of the hours they have. Every hour you dedicate to growth compounds like money in a bank, quietly building your freedom, your options, and your wealth. If you begin today, even with 1 hour, the effect over months and years is extraordinary. You are planting seeds that will one day bear fruit long after the hour is gone. And that is the difference between merely surviving and truly thriving. One of the hardest lessons I ever had to learn is the power of no. Early in my career, I said yes to almost everything, every invitation, every request, every opportunity that came my way. I thought that saying yes would open doors, build connections, and keep me moving forward. But what I discovered was the opposite. Every yes I gave to distractions, to trivial matters, to the urgent but unimportant, was a no to my future. Every hour spent reacting to someone else's priorities was an hour stolen from my own destiny. That realization hit me like a brick. I realized that my freedom, my growth, my wealth, all depended on learning the art of saying no. The wealthy guard their time like a treasure. They understand that it is the most finite, irreplaceable resource they have. Unlike money, once a moment passes, it is gone forever. I remember a time when I filled my days with tasks that seemed urgent but were ultimately meaningless to my long-term goals. I was busy but not productive. I was active but not advancing. Then I began to filter every new task through my priorities. I asked myself, does this align with what I truly want? If the answer was no, I learned to say it politely, firmly, without guilt. That simple habit changed everything. It was a matter of discipline, but also a matter of clarity about what I valued most. To protect your future, you must identify your top priorities and let them guide every decision. I recommend listing the 3 things that matter most: your health, your personal growth, your wealth, or whatever anchors your vision. Then, filter every incoming demand through those priorities. If it does not support them, it is a distraction. Turn off non-essential notifications, schedule focused blocks of work, and commit to them like appointments with your future self. The more rigorously you defend your hours, the more they multiply in value. Saying no is not just about rejecting things, it's about affirming what you truly want. Discipline, after all, is remembering what you really want. Every time you refuse a trivial request or an unaligned activity, you are saying yes to your destiny, yes to your freedom, yes to the life you intend to build. It is a skill, and like any skill, it grows stronger with practice. I still practice it today. When an opportunity comes my way, I pause and ask, will this serve my long-term goals or just my immediate curiosity? That pause has saved me countless hours, countless distractions, and countless regrets. The truth is, the ability to say no determines your ability to say yes when it matters most. Every no is a brick in the foundation of your future. Each time you defend your time, you are not being selfish, you are being strategic. You are building the freedom to focus, to grow, to invest in yourself, and to achieve what others only dream about. Protect your hours, guard them fiercely, and let every decision you make honor the life you want to create. I've always believed that your calendar is the clearest reflection of your values. You can say all the right things about what matters to you, but if your schedule doesn't match, it's all just words. Early in my life, I realized this the hard way. I would talk about wanting to grow my business, improve my health, and spend time with family, yet my days were consumed by chaos, distractions, and unplanned demands. The truth hit me. If it wasn't on my calendar, it didn't exist. Time does not wait. It does not bend to your intentions unless you plan for it. The wealthy understand this. They know that planning their hours before life demands them is what separates those who drift from those who lead. Every Sunday, I began the practice of planning my week. I would take a notebook, my calendar, and lay it all out. I blocked time for work that advanced my goals, for learning that sharpened my mind, for health that fueled my energy, and for family that nurtured my spirit. I even scheduled time for my dreams, projects I wanted to start, ideas I wanted to explore, investments I wanted to research. Giving your dreams a time slot is a powerful act. If it's not on your calendar, it is invisible, it is unlikely to grow, and eventually it dies under the weight of daily urgencies. By planning, you give your intentions life. You assign them value. You tell yourself and the world that these things are important. At the end of each week, I would review my schedule, comparing it to my priorities. Did I spend my hours in alignment with my values, or had they slipped into trivialities and distractions? That reflection was sometimes uncomfortable, but it was essential. The wealthy do not allow life to happen to them, they make life happen. They recognize that each hour spent carelessly is an hour they will never get back, and every moment invested purposefully compounds into opportunity, growth, and freedom. Scheduling is not just a tool for efficiency, it is a statement of intent. It is a declaration that your goals, your values, and your dreams matter more than fleeting distractions. I remember one period early in my career when I blocked 2 hours each morning for reading, learning, and strategizing. At first it felt indulgent because it was time taken from immediate tasks. But over months, those hours turned into knowledge, clarity, and opportunities that propelled my work and income far beyond what I imagined. That is the power of assigning time to what matters. Your calendar becomes a mirror. If health is missing, your body will show it. If family is missing, relationships will show it. If growth is missing, your results will show it. Don't start the day until it's finished on paper. Guard those hours, assign them wisely, and let your schedule reflect the life you truly want to live. I've discovered that the first and last hour of your day holds more power than any other. How you start your morning sets the tone for every decision, every action, every opportunity that follows. And how you end your day determines the clarity, peace, and energy you carry into the next one. I've seen so many people caught in routines of distraction and reaction surrender those hours to chaos and wonder why their lives feel scattered. The wealthy understand that these hours are sacred. They guard them, protect them, and use them intentionally because the quality of these hours compounds into the quality of the entire day, month, and year. In my early days, I made the mistake of diving straight into emails, bills, and messages the moment I opened my eyes. By mid-morning, I was exhausted, reacting to demands, and my own priorities had been postponed or forgotten. Then I learned the simple habit that changed everything. Read something inspiring or educational, review your goals, and decide on 3 priorities for the day before the outside world intrudes. Even if it's just 30 minutes at first, this is the hour that plants the seeds for achievement. It is the time when your mind is fresh, undistracted, and capable of shaping your reality rather than being shaped by it. Equally important is the last hour of your day. I make it a practice to reflect, to review wins, to examine lessons, and to plan the first task of tomorrow. Writing down the successes, no matter how small, trains your mind to notice progress. Recording mistakes or challenges ensures that they become teachers, not burdens. Over time, this simple habit of reflection and planning builds awareness and wisdom that compound just like money in an account. I call it a victory journal, though it is really a record of growth. 5 minutes a night, consistently, changes your trajectory. By guarding the first and last hours, you take control of your day instead of surrendering it. Mornings become a launch pad for focus and energy. Evenings a reservoir of insight and preparation. This discipline transforms not just productivity, but your mindset, your confidence, and your results. I remember a time when I committed to this practice during a particularly chaotic period in my life. Within weeks, I noticed a difference, not in how many hours I worked, but in the clarity of decisions, the quality of relationships, and the progress of projects. Those 2 hours, protected and invested wisely, multiplied into outcomes far greater than the time itself. Either you run the day, or the day runs you? The choice is simple, but it requires discipline. Protect your first and last hour, and you take control of every moment in between. The life you want, the results you desire, begin with these sacred hours. I've come to realize that the hours you invest in learning are the most valuable hours you will ever spend. You see, formal education will give you a living, but self-education, that deliberate, consistent pursuit of knowledge, has the power to give you a fortune. I remember sitting at a small desk with barely enough money to pay the bills, but I committed 1 hour every day to learning. It didn't matter that the world was noisy, that life was busy, or that there were distractions calling my name. That hour, dedicated solely to growth, started to compound in ways I could never have imagined. Think about it. 1 hour each day, reading a chapter, listening to a podcast, or attending a lecture is like planting seeds in fertile soil. You may not see immediate results, just as you don't see a tree grow the moment you plant the seed. But over weeks, months, and years, the growth is undeniable. I studied people who had already achieved what I aspired to, those who created freedom and wealth, and I discovered patterns, principles, and practices that were invisible to the casual observer. Each piece of knowledge was a tool, and over time, those tools transformed into opportunities, strategies, and income streams. Learning isn't just about accumulation. It's about transformation. I found that when I applied what I learned, tested it, and refined it, I wasn't just smarter, I was more capable, more resourceful, more prepared to recognize and seize opportunities. And here's a critical step many miss: teaching what you learn. The act of articulating and guiding someone else forces clarity, and what was once surface knowledge becomes ingrained wisdom. Sharing is not just generous. It's a method of internalizing lessons that no solitary study can achieve. I've also seen the cost of neglecting this principle. People miss opportunities because they prioritize short-term comfort over long-term growth. They'll work tirelessly for money, but never carve out an hour to grow their capacity to earn it more wisely. That's why I often say, miss a meal if you have to, but don't miss your reading. The time you spend learning compounds like money in the bank. It multiplies your abilities, your insights, your confidence, and your network. It turns ordinary hours into extraordinary leverage over your future. You see, wealth is not just a reflection of what you earn today, it's a reflection of what you know, how quickly you learn, and how creatively you apply that knowledge. Every successful person I've met shares one common trait. They read, they study, and they never stop expanding their minds. The day you stop investing in yourself is the day your growth slows. And in a world that moves quickly, that delay can cost you decades of opportunity. Your hours are your most precious currency. Spend them wisely. Invest in learning, in growth, in wisdom, and you will reap a fortune that extends far beyond money. I've learned over the years that the hours you waste or the hours you gain aren't determined solely by discipline. They're determined by the environment you inhabit. Time mastery isn't just a matter of willpower, it's a matter of design. If your surroundings are chaotic, if your desk is cluttered, if your notifications never stop, and if the people around you drain your focus, no amount of motivation will make you efficient. I remember early in my career trying to study and plan while surrounded by noise, distractions, and clutter. I would sit for an hour, and it felt like 10 minutes had passed. Nothing stuck. I realized quickly that my environment was not neutral, it was working against me. So I started to intentionally design my surroundings for focus and productivity. I decluttered my workspace, leaving only what was necessary for the task at hand. I put away things that screamed for attention but contributed nothing to my growth. I found that clearing the external chaos cleared my mind. Suddenly, ideas flowed more freely. Tasks that once seemed daunting became manageable. Small changes in the environment compounded over time, and the hours I spent became far more productive. It's not just your physical environment that matters, it's also the company you keep. I noticed that when I spent time with people who valued time and respected goals, I naturally elevated my own standards. Their energy, their discipline, their commitment rubbed off. Conversely, when I spent time with people constantly distracted, complaining, or chasing fleeting pleasures, I found myself slipping into the same habits. You are, indeed, the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Your efficiency, your vision, and your ambitions are shaped by the company and the culture you surround yourself with. But designing your environment isn't just about decluttering or choosing companions. It's also about scheduling deliberate solitude. Great ideas, financial strategies, and plans for the future rarely arrive in the noise of everyday life. They arrive in quiet moments, in focused reflection, when your mind can wander, connect, and create. I set aside time for solitude, a sacred hour each day to think, to plan, and to dream without distraction. Those hours became some of the most valuable in my life. The truth is, efficiency is rarely about working harder, it's about working smarter. And working smarter begins with the environment that surrounds you. Treat your hours as precious, and treat your surroundings as a tool to maximize them. Remove distractions, cultivate positive influence, and create space for thinking and growth. Your environment can either be your prison, stealing your hours away in subtle ways, or your ally, magnifying your focus and your output. Every hour you master in the right environment compounds into days, months, and years of advantage. Don't leave your surroundings to chance. Design them, control them, and watch how your focus multiplies. I want you to think about wealth for a moment. Not just the numbers in your bank account, but the true wealth that touches your life every single day. Money is important, of course. It provides comfort, security, and options. But there's a form of wealth far rarer, far more powerful, and far more transformative: time. Time, wealth. The ability to wake up and choose how you spend your hours. To work when you want, to rest when you need, to invest in relationships, in growth, in your own soul. This is the highest form of wealth because it cannot be bought once it is gone. You can earn more money, but you cannot earn back lost time. I've observed countless people who spend their lives chasing dollars but are bankrupt in hours. They work long weeks, weekends, and holidays, and when they finally look up, they realize the years have slipped through their fingers. Their homes are full, their bank accounts may be comfortable, but their relationships, health, and personal dreams are neglected. This is the irony. They thought they were building wealth, but they were trading their life for money rather than using money to build a life. The wealthy, on the other hand, understand that the ultimate goal of mastering your hours is not just to accumulate dollars, it is to buy back your time. To achieve this, the first step is clarity. Define what time freedom looks like for you. Imagine the life you would design if you had complete control over your hours. Would you spend mornings with your children? Would you travel, learn a new skill, or write a book? Picture it vividly, because that vision becomes the compass for your decisions. Once you know what you're working toward, every choice about money and effort becomes easier. The wealthy use money strategically, not just to survive or impress, but to create freedom. The next step is to build systems and streams of income that eventually work without you. Investments, royalties, side ventures, These are the tools that free your hours. At first, it takes time and discipline to set them up, but once the systems are in motion, your earned income is supplemented by passive income. The hours you once traded directly for pay are slowly returned to you. I remember when I first structured a small teaching venture outside my regular work. The initial effort was intense, but after a few months, it began producing returns with far less active involvement. Those reclaimed hours became my most precious asset. Finally, once you've bought back your time, invest it wisely. The wealthy understand that freedom without purpose is wasted. Spend it on learning, relationships, health, and meaningful projects. Use it to grow yourself and to serve others. Time wealth gives you the ultimate choice to live intentionally, not reactively. The hours you master today compound into decades of freedom, fulfillment, and impact. Remember, the goal is not just to make a living, but to design a life. Time is the currency of that life, and mastering your hours is the path to the freedom money alone cannot buy. Wealth is not born from sudden miracles or grand gestures. It is not created overnight by a single stroke of luck or a lucky investment tip. True wealth is the product of consistent small steps carried out faithfully over time. I've learned that those who build real, lasting financial freedom are rarely the ones chasing the latest scheme or waiting for the perfect opportunity. They are the ones who, day by day, week by week, quietly and deliberately make the right choices, even when no one is watching. It's in the repetition, in the discipline, and in the patience that fortune grows. I remember when I was just starting out. My income was small, my debts felt large, and the temptation to spend on immediate pleasures was strong. Yet I began a simple practice. I saved a small fixed amount every week. At first it barely made a difference, and some days it felt almost comical. What could a few dollars really do? But over the years, those small deposits compounded. They grew into a financial foundation that allowed me to invest, take calculated risks, and seize opportunities I never imagined possible when I was living paycheck to paycheck. Small, disciplined actions created options, and options create freedom. The principle is simple. Consistency beats intensity. A single large effort may give a short-term result, but without follow-through, it fades. The wealthy understand that wealth is not a matter of luck or one-time effort. It is a matter of habit. Saving a fixed amount weekly or monthly, regardless of income, is more powerful than waiting until you make enough. Investing consistently in diversified assets, stocks, bonds, real estate, or even your own skills, ensures that your efforts are multiplying quietly in the background. Each month your money is not idle, it is working for you, steadily building over time. It's equally important to review and adjust your contributions. Life changes, opportunities arise, and circumstances shift. The key is not perfection, but continual adjustment and persistence. Once a year, take stock of what you've accomplished, see where your money has gone, and determine how you can improve. This practice reinforces your habits, sharpens your vision, and keeps you moving forward without losing momentum. I remember reviewing my own investments each year, small tweaks here and there, and watching the compounding effect unfold. What seemed trivial in the moment became monumental over a decade. The wisdom is clear. Massive results are rarely born from massive efforts. They are born from small disciplines, repeated consistently, and compounded over years. Saving a little, investing a little, learning a little each day. All of these small steps accumulate into a life of wealth, security, and opportunity. Remember, small disciplines repeated consistently yield massive results. Most people spend their lives focused on income, thinking that the paycheck at the end of the week is the measure of their success. They trade hours for dollars, believing that working harder or longer is the path to freedom. But true financial power comes from understanding the difference between income and assets. Income stops when you stop working. Assets, on the other hand, continue to generate value long after you've laid down your tools. I've seen it countless times in my own life and in the lives of those I've mentored. Those who focus on asset creation live with a sense of freedom that a paycheck alone can never provide. Early in my career, I realized that earning more wasn't enough. I could work harder, take on extra hours, but my freedom never expanded. I had to learn to make my time and money work for me. That meant thinking differently, identifying skills, knowledge, or opportunities that could generate income even while I slept. I started small, writing a workshop, creating a product from my experiences, and investing in books and courses that increased my understanding of business and finance. Each step was an asset in its own way, something that continued to give back over time. The strategy is clear. Focus on turning effort into assets. Begin by identifying one skill, one knowledge area, or one business idea that has the potential to produce passive income. This might be learning to invest wisely in stocks, understanding real estate opportunities, or developing intellectual property like books, courses, or systems that others will pay for repeatedly. The key is that these are not just one-time earners. They continue to work for you after the initial effort. Your time becomes leveraged, your energy multiplied. Once you have that initial asset, reinvest the earnings. Don't spend every dollar as it comes. Put profits back into building more assets, creating a compounding effect that accelerates growth. I remember reinvesting small profits from my early seminars into more learning, more materials, and more tools to reach larger audiences. Each reinvestment created another layer of income, another rung on the ladder to freedom. The results weren't instantaneous, but they were steady, cumulative, and reliable. The wealthy think in terms of assets, not just income. They understand that income is temporary, but assets are permanent. They build systems, invest in ideas, and cultivate skills that continue to generate value without constant intervention. This is the difference between trading time for money and using your time to create freedom. Your goal should be to have more money working for you than you are working for money. When you focus on asset creation, you stop being a servant to your paycheck and start becoming the architect of your financial life. Work builds income. Assets build freedom. Begin today by identifying one small asset you can develop, invest in it, and let it grow. Reinvest the returns, multiply your efforts. Over time, these small decisions accumulate into the foundation of true wealth and freedom. Most people never truly understand their money because they never take the time to control it. They earn, they spend, and they wonder why nothing seems to change. The truth is simple. If you don't control your expenses, they will control you. I've seen people with six-figure incomes living paycheck to paycheck simply because their spending habits ran their lives. They traded freedom for fleeting pleasures, and the result was stress, uncertainty, and frustration. Real financial power comes not from how much you make, but from how wisely you manage what you have. Early in my journey, I learned this lesson the hard way. I was making small amounts, but I spent freely, chasing comfort and convenience. Then a mentor asked me a simple question. Do you know where every dollar goes? I realized I didn't. That was the turning point. From that moment on, I began tracking every single expense. I wrote down every purchase, no matter how small, every cup of coffee, every magazine, every bill. And as I saw the patterns, I realized where my money was leaking, where it was going to temporary pleasure rather than long-term growth. That clarity changed everything. The strategy is straightforward. Begin by tracking all your expenses for 1 month. Don't guess. Don't average. Write it down, record it, make it real. Once you see the flow, you'll notice the non-essential spending that creeps in unnoticed. That daily snack, that unnecessary subscription, that impulse purchase, small amounts, yes, but compounded over time, they become significant. Then, redirect those resources toward things that build wealth. Learning, investing, and giving. Think of every dollar as a worker. Are you sending it to a temporary task or to a job that compounds your future? One principle I've lived by is the 70-10-10-10 rule. 70% of your income covers your living expenses. 10% goes into your own development, books, courses, mentoring. Another 10% goes to investments, assets that will work for you while you sleep. And the final 10% goes to giving, because generosity creates abundance and opens doors we never expected. This simple allocation transforms money from a fleeting commodity into a servant that works for you. I've seen countless people change their lives by controlling what they spend. They don't deprive themselves, they simply prioritize, making sure that every dollar has a purpose. Living below your means is not about restriction, it's about choice. It's about saying no to what doesn't serve your future and yes to what does. Discipline is remembering what you truly want. Every time you redirect money from wasteful spending into growth, you strengthen your freedom, your confidence, and your future. Money is a servant, but a dangerous master if uncontrolled. Take control today. Track, plan, and allocate with purpose, and you will watch your wealth and your freedom grow. Too many people think wealth is measured by the car they drive, the house they live in, or the vacations they take. That's a lifestyle, not true wealth. True wealth is something far deeper. It's the system you create, the knowledge you acquire, and the habits you pass on to the next generation. Money by itself can be spent and lost. But when paired with wisdom, discipline, and planning, it becomes a legacy, and a legacy is immortal. It continues to serve long after you are gone. I remember sitting with an older gentleman once, a man who didn't have a massive estate, but he had journals and ledgers meticulously recording his financial decisions, investments, and the lessons he had learned over decades. His children didn't just inherit dollars, they inherited a system, a philosophy, a mindset that prepared them to manage, grow, and protect their own wealth. That struck me profoundly. I realized then that the greatest gift we can leave is not just cash, it's the framework to build, preserve, and multiply it. The strategy is simple but powerful. First, document your financial decisions, your wins and mistakes, your methods, and your principles. Share them openly with your family, mentees, or anyone who will benefit. When you teach, you multiply your impact. A single lesson learned by one person can ripple through generations. I've always kept notes, journals, and letters describing not just what I did with my money, but why I did it. Over time, these became a guide for those who came after me, reducing their mistakes, accelerating their growth, and giving them a sense of direction I wish I'd had when I was starting out. Next, consider protecting your assets for the long term. Create a will, a trust, or a long-term plan. This isn't about fear or obsession, it's about responsibility. Wealth without structure can disappear as quickly as it comes. Proper planning ensures that the resources you've worked so hard to accumulate can continue to serve your purpose, your family, and your community. Think of it as planting trees whose shade you may never sit under, but which future generations will enjoy. Finally, share your financial knowledge openly. Teach your children, your colleagues, or your mentees how to manage money, invest wisely, and develop discipline. Don't just give them money, give them the tools, the mindset, and the habits to create more. When wealth is hoarded, it dies. When it is shared, it grows, multiplying impact far beyond the original seed. I've seen students and mentees take small lessons I taught them and turn them into businesses, investments, and opportunities that change their lives and the lives of those around them. That is the power of a legacy. True wealth is never just about living well today. It's about creating a system that endures, a philosophy that guides, and a foundation that others can build upon. Every decision you make, every principle you practice, and every lesson you share contributes to the legacy you leave behind. If you focus solely on lifestyle, you may enjoy today, but if you focus on legacy, you enrich tomorrow. Wealth that is hoarded dies. Wealth that is shared grows. As we draw this journey to a close, I want you to pause and reflect on what we've discussed today. Mastering your hours is not just about productivity or checking off tasks. It's about mastering your life. The hours you have are the most valuable currency you will ever hold. Every choice you make with them, every minute you invest, every decision to act or to procrastinate compounds over time. If you neglect them, the hours slip through your fingers, and with them, your opportunities, your freedom, and your future. But if you take control, if you treat your time like the treasure it truly is, you begin to craft a life that cannot be taken from you. Remember, wealth, real wealth, isn't built in a day. It is built in the quiet, consistent moments. Paying yourself first, investing in knowledge, creating assets, nurturing relationships, and building systems that work even when your motivation falters. The rich understand that their hours are the seed of their freedom, and they guard them with discipline, clarity, and purpose. They plan before life demands it. They learn before it's too late. They act with intention instead of reaction. And that, my friends, is the difference between a life that drifts and a life that thrives. Now, it's time for action. Don't leave here inspired only to return to old habits tomorrow. Take one step today. Pick one habit, one system, one small change, and implement it immediately. Track your hours, write down your priorities, schedule time for growth, invest in yourself, and start building assets that work even when you sleep. Protect your time like the treasure it is, and let your daily choices reflect your highest vision. And don't stop there. Share what you learn with someone else. Teach it, discuss it, and create accountability, because the life you design will grow stronger when it touches others. The hours you master will ripple outward, influencing not just your destiny, but the destinies of those around you. So I challenge you, step off autopilot. Decide that today, and every day after, you will honor your hours. Treat them like the priceless currency they are. Master your time, invest in your growth, and build the wealth, not just the money, that lasts a lifetime. Your future is not determined by luck or circumstance. It is determined by the choices you make right now. Make them count.